adjust our budget, our annual budget, and to take as careful a look as possible without cutting us short later in the fiscal year. So Kyle, would you like to go ahead, please?
Cool, thank you, Caroline. Okay, so knowing that budget cuts were imminent, I did a lot of comparable research to what other tourism communities were doing, how South Lake was cutting their budget, North Lake, Reno, Vegas. You hear about these massive cuts coming out of Reno and Vegas, and so it was really just trying to assess what our situation was going to be and how we were going to be affected with how much we were going to cut. I always am going to estimate on the conservative side, so in this case it means cutting more out of the budget than what I would consider being cavalier and thinking that we weren't going to be affected as much as other communities. And so I went through everything from a 10% budget cut, which was I think way too low, all the way up to a 25% budget cut, which ultimately equated into about a little over $400,000 that needed to be cut out of the budget, which was just really out of the question. There's no way you could operate cutting that much out. So after consideration, 17% was what kind of I went with, or what I figured out was kind of the sweet spot where we could cut some stuff, tighten our belts, kind of feel the pain with the rest of the community, but not slit our own throats and divest in tourism. So the idea behind this is we cut where we could cut, and we try to keep money in places that were investments into heads and beds. So that's kind of the real thing here is what puts money back into our community, what turns into that 37 or 30 to 1 investment rate for every dollar that we spend. So does everybody have a copy of this? I emailed it out about 2 o'clock. Awesome, thank you, Ian. So essentially it's 17%. The room tax income we're projecting about $240,975 less than what we were projecting for. So what that comes out to is $1,176,525 is what we're expecting to bring in next year in city room tax. In county room tax, we were looking at about a $27,000 decrease, so that's $132,219. Center events, obviously we're going to take a small hit in that one as events come back, so I went ahead and dropped that down to $37,500. That's a $12,500 decrease. And for grant reimbursables, with Travel Nevada cutting their grants right off the bat, that's about $20,000 that I was applying for that will not be funded. So I went ahead and took that $20,000 and I cut that out of grant reimbursement. That's also shown down in the grant reimbursables in the expense statement as well. So if you go down into the expenses, through talking individually with board members, we didn't want to do furloughs or layoffs or anything like that. So we were trying to keep the employees working during this and just seeing where we could tighten our belt a little bit more. So going straight down the line, I went ahead and I'm recommending a cut of $10,000 out of T&R events. I went through an itemized list last time, and what each one of our events that we currently do, that $10,000 is about half of what I had hoped for attracting new events. So still a little bit of money in there to attract new events. We can still run the events that we're part of, but just tighten it a little bit on that one. For travel and promotions, $3,000 reduction, so that's me. Travel and board promotions, which was already pretty thin, that's a $500 reduction. So we're looking at $2,000 in travel and $1,500 for travel and board. If you go down a little bit further, because a lot of the next lines are utilities, subscriptions, things like that, you get into billboard advertising. We are going to be reducing the billboard that we have in Wendover. Well, not reducing, we're getting rid of it. The train's taking that one over. So that's $10,000 out of that budget that will knock that down to $20,000. For the grant reimbursables, that $20,000 that was shown in the income is shown down there, so that's pretty cut and dry. Historic asset maintenance, this was a new line item that I was hoping to invest into our historic assets. We've got one person who's taken us up on that, and it certainly won't take the $30,000 out of this, so I'm recommending cutting that in half, reducing it $15,000 to $15,000 And hopefully we can still reinvest in some of our historic assets. Below that is printing. We bumped up printing significantly because we were gonna be sending out a bunch of mailers and all kinds of good stuff like that. I just went ahead and bumped it down 2,000, still more than what we spent this year, but less than what I was proposing for next year. Public art remains the same because we've got some really exciting mural projects that we're working on, both here in Ely, but also in McGill. And the Main Street America program, recommending keeping that going through because they have shown that the $20,000 that we've invested, they turned it into $50,000 like that. New signs, events, so I think that's money well spent. The community marketing campaign, went ahead and suggested reducing that $10,000. We had bumped it up to 90, which is more than what we had this last year. But if we go ahead and reduce that by 10,000, that certainly helps us hit the mark. As well as consulting services, bump that down $10,000 to $20,000, and that essentially is our PR company. That would cover them for a year, or whatever PR company we're going with, but it would not allow for additional contract work. Let's see. Outdoor recreation grants, that one is contingent on how much money the city brings in the room tax. Remember, that's a 0.5% that we manage on behalf of the city. And so doing all the calculations and everything like that, that came down $10,000. So I believe we'll have $45,000 in our outdoor recreation grant on behalf of what the city allows us to manage. And the aid to organization grant, I know we're gonna be going over that today. My recommendation, because this really is the events that bring in heads and beds, you know, there has to be a reduction, but I'm still proposing $55,000 to award today to the nonprofit organizations for aid to organization. The other one, and this is where we took the biggest hit, and that was capital outlay. So capital outlay is both the money that we improve our building with, as well as the capital grants that we award to the nonprofit organization. So usually how that divvies out is we did about, I think, $65,000 in capital improvement last year in our grant awards. That is up to the board how they want to divvy out this year's capital, you know, how much money we want to do for those grants. But I'm recommending, where we were having $160,000 in capital improvements, we were going to do a number of building improvements, things like that. There's a number of that stuff that can wait. And so I think $85,000 this next year for capital improvements. We can hit the technology upgrades and some of the other, I guess, low-hanging, less expensive fruit. The bathroom remodel may have to wait. I think sanitation takes top priority for capital improvements, getting ionic, you know, UV air purifiers for the restrooms, the hand sanitizer dispensers for the front of the building. Are just going to take priority. So that bumps it down to $85,000. The goal, if you'll see down there, to reduce our expenses 17%, the goal was to knock out $187,414, which would have made the total tour and rec expenses down to $915,023. What you'll see where it's at right now is $919,937. So with the reductions that I've recommended, there's still $4,000 over what a true 17% would be. But if you look all the way down at the bottom where, you know, the actual bottom line, you'll see how much I believe the city and the golf course and the train and Travel Nevada are going to be getting less due to their percentages in reductions. So you kind of help. So for Kurt and Ian, you know, I hope this helps with the budgeting for the city and the county, because this is what we're estimating based off of our room tax projections, how much the city and county are going to be getting. But it still shows an operating surplus of $89,707.70. I'm glad that we could show, we could cut, but we could still show that we're operating at a surplus, and we can still show that we're taking care of our employees. And I know this isn't going to last forever. I think our biggest hits truly are going to happen right here at the end of the fiscal year in this budget. And I'm hoping by the time this next fiscal year starts that we really truly don't realize a 17% reduction, but I feel comfortable that if we do, that we can still operate under this and not slice our own throats. Any questions?
No, I think you did a really, oh, go ahead, Ian.
I was just gonna say, that looks really good. It's, yeah, just good job, Kyle. That looks great. I think we're gonna be okay, and it leaves us room for some of these things maybe to even be less expensive than we're anticipating in the event of an emergency. So, I think it's good. It's gonna be fun.
Thank you.
Well, I think you did a great job, and it's always hard when you have to make reductions like this. You have to make choices, and I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Kurt?
Yeah, good job, Kyle. I know it's painful to do this, but, you cut in the right places, and I think it looks great. We'll make it through it.
Brian? You're on mute, Brian. You're still on mute.
There you go.
There we go, sorry. I did a great job, and 17% is never easy to cut, we can cut in a budget, so it's a lot. Thanks.
Is there any comment from the public at this time?
What was that?
Any comment about the budget from the public?
Yeah, I couldn't hear most of it, and that's not good.
Do you have the copy of this?
I have that, but
Okay.
I didn't hear all the comments from the different members. So that needs to be noted.
Okay.
We gotta do better, this is not good.
The only public comment is that he couldn't hear you guys saying good job, and we need to do better at being louder.
Thank you. Hopefully we'll figure that, whoops. Thank you, Mr. Chachis. You want to turn yours off, Kyle? Okay, again, I think that with our strategic plan of focusing on Southern Nevada #1, with that market there, we're a drive market. We have a lot of assets in the sense that we're not a fly-in market, which is an added layer. So it's taking advantage of our assets here, and this was well thought out.
Nor are we relying on international travel.
Oh yes, we're not relying on international travel, which is really a big help. So I think the focus is really good. Just the changes in the last year was, started out with the little 3-day postcard for the horse races, is turned into a quarterly bigger mailer to all the households in Eureka and Lyon and White Pine County. It's been a huge hit to notify all the folks within our own range of what we're doing. The survey that we did for the Main Street was indicated that locals didn't know what was going on, and we've all heard that for years. And so this piece of mailer has gathered a lot of very positive attention. So thank you for that focus. It's not inexpensive, but it's well worth it, I think, the return on investment. So I think, and we can certainly adjust as we go. So thank you very much, Kyle, for your work. Any other comments while we're in this public hearing, official? Maureen, do you have anything? No. Okay, thank you. Wayne? Okay. At this time, then, we'll close the public meeting.
Wait, because we need to send this to the State Department of Taxation, you guys need to approve this as the final budget.
Well, that's the next step.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll close this first, and now we'll reopen the regular meeting, and it'll be item number 7, discussion and for possible action, approval of the budget for FY 21-22. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the budget.
Thank you, Kurt.
Second.
Ian, thank you for the second. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Thank you very much. Okay, I believe the last thing that we have on the agenda,
What do you do with item 9? Did you discuss that?
About yours?
Yeah, we discussed that.
Wayne is
I didn't
asking
hear it.
about item 9 with the shared agreement. And so what the discussion was that we didn't have to approve anything, is we're going to, Kyle's going to be seeking an appraisal of it, of the building.
Okay.
Wayne?
The seller gets the appraisal.
Oh, well, the seller has to pay the appraisal. Okay,
Yes.
well, we'll, at any rate, that's you can discuss that with him, what was discussed, or Mr. Beecher at that time. So,
I'll fill you in.
I didn't
Okay.
hear it.
I'll
okay.
remind you.
Okay, thank you, George. So the last discussion we have right now is the review and approval of FY 21-22 aid to organization grants. And I'll give you a moment to get ready with these. There was a big stack that we received probably over a month ago from Nicole. And I don't see any there, so I assume that everybody's picked them up and has been reviewing them. Because we're not together, I'd like to propose if we could just, I'm going to read proposals on these things, understanding that this is for the next year. These grants, the money will not be they won't be dispersed until after this next year, so we are under the reduction. And we had first been told $70,000, and then that nasty little COVID came. So we're looking at $55,000. We had, I believe it's about $90,000 worth of requests, so you can see there's been a lot of pairing on things and a lot of phone calls. Kyle, I've heard him talk to different nonprofits of, are you holding your event, and please don't cancel. If it's going to be in May or June, don't cancel, please postpone, because we certainly want these events to occur. So if you could get the sheet that Nicole sent us and maybe follow along with that. I'm gonna read some proposals on that, and we can discuss at the end what you think if we need to adjust it. It comes out about $55,000. And again, thanks to Kyle for contacting most of these folks to really see, if they're going forward and letting them know we had a reduction. So the first one is the Eastern Nevada Landscape Coalition, and Kyle talked to them about, because we've redone the rates for the convention center, they had, under a previous understanding with our room rates, the rentals, they had a budget of $1,600. And for the 2 days, it's about $700, and so the proposal is just to do the $700 for the rent of the convention center. We're not going to lose money, but they also don't have that big budget item. So that would be the first, is $700. The second, White Pine Ranch Rodeo, another great event around the horse racing weekend, is $900 for the ranch rodeo. The third is White Pine Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring the paint horse show, and proposal would be $350. The fourth is the Steptoe Valley Trap Skeet and Target, and Kyle's been in conversation with them about those shooting events and to try and keep those going, and so the proposal would be $750. The next one is Great Basin Service Club 4th of July fireworks, and they do a wonderful job. They had requested $8,000, but because of the cuts, we have given $6,000 in the past, and the proposal is $6,000. Bristlecone Bowman, a proposal for $2,000. Theirs is in June, and they're going to try and get something as soon as they can. So we're working with the Bristlecone Bowman. Great Basin Trails Alliance for the Fears, Tears, and Beers. And this is such a signature event, and it's so what proposed is $3,000. The White Pine Chamber of Commerce, the concert, the Fab Four. Last year, this was just the concert that everyone has still talked about, and really appreciate Mr. Cameron putting that on and bringing them back. And so that would be $600 requested, and the proposal is a $600 funding. White Pine Horse Races. Again, our largest event in the community, where we do the fair and the ranch rodeo and all of the different venues that go with that weekend. And thankfully, that's not until the third weekend in August. And so the request is $20,000 and the proposal is $18,000. Okay, if you can move to the second page. There are 4 for the Ely Outdoor Enthusiast, and I would recommend that Nancy Herms block those all together. She's done a wonderful job. The request was for $4,800, and the proposal is for $3,000 for all 4 of them lumped together. And I believe Kyle is doing a lot more marketing for them, so it cuts their expenses down. White Pine Productions, this is a new one for us, the White Pine Bull Riding and Futurity. And it has occurred last year, it was supposed to, it will, I assume, occur this year too. And so this would be for the following year, and proposed is $2,000 to help them. The next one is the Ely Children's Theater, and that's for their productions. They requested 500, and the proposal's for 250. McGill Town Council, this one takes a, oh, go ahead,
Madam Chair,
yes.
we got one, White Pine Bull Riding and Futurity.
Yeah, the $2,000. Okay, and again, that's the first time they've requested. Okay?
Film festival, I think, is next, roll with that.
Yeah, you forgot.
Oh, Film
Correct.
Festival, I forgot that. Whew.
That's what I'm trying, yeah. Oh,
Thank you, thank you. So the Ely Film Festival, for those that were able to attend this year, and thankfully it was a squeaker to get this done before everything shut down, was just amazing. So again, the first year, and although the request is for $96.50, the proposal is $3,000 on this to support them for next year. And then, okay, so we'll go back to the McGill Town Council. Thank you for letting me know. McGill Town Council, that one was a complex that they're trying to really, Kyle's been reaching out and going to the town council meetings. And we are a whole county, and we want to definitely help all the parts, and so their request was for a mural and also a storytelling celebration, and technically we can't, the mural is a capital expenditure. So in the discussion of, this is on their Labor Day celebration every year, which they do a great job to have a storytelling event, and it would be, it's not like a funeral where people who want to give comments and you don't know what's gonna happen, but there would be scripted like Keith, what's Keith's last name? From McGill, anyway, the historian.
Keith Gibson.
That would give the different, he could give a part, and we'd have different aspects of McGill with storytelling, and so it would take some organization, and Kyle has committed to them, he'll help them. So the proposal would be $700 for that storytelling event, which would really be a big help for their Labor Day celebration. And then we give high consideration in our capital funding for a mural there. And it's just, I think McGill is really, it's coming into its own, it has its own renaissance going on, and with what Rudy Herndon's done with the IOOF Hall and the theater, he's invested a lot of money, and it's really nice to see what they're doing and supporting them. So that is the proposal, is $700. The next one is the White Pine Public Museum Beer and Bacon, and they have canceled that event, so that's a 0. And White Pine Men's Golf Association, I believe it's, they requested $4,800, and I believe it's $2,800?
Yes.
Okay, $2,800 for that. And hopefully the golf course will be open again soon. This is certainly a good time for it. And then the Women's Ladies Golf Association, they requested $1,200, and the proposal is $500. Nevada Northern Railway Foundation, as you know, the Polar Express became prohibitive with the 30% plus all of the paid actors and the bells being $1 each, and it became too pricey to even run. So they've done Santa's Reindeer Express, and so this would be helping in marketing. These are really our only rooms and events that we get in here in November and December. So the proposal would be $8,000. And then finally, the White Pine Rodeo team from White Pine High School, they do a wonderful job, and that is scheduled for September, and the proposal is $2,700. So it comes just a smidge over $55,000, but in examining our awards and what happened this last year, we award an amount, but it's usually less is what's collected, because things change. Like we granted $5,000 for this past year for the air races, and that didn't occur. So, just the percentage of things happen like that. So I'd certainly open the floor for any discussion on any of these. Do you want to see any changes, adjustments?
This all looks pretty good to me. I mean, we're spreading it out the best we can right now. And some of these events, budget, so some of these are gonna come up
Well-
with the kickback anyway, so.
Well, this year's event, this year's Fierce Tears and Beers was money that was granted last year, so hopefully 2021's Fierce Tears and Beers is not in jeopardy. My only question for the board and James, we did just approve 55,000 in the final budget. Do we have to go ahead and make it 55,000 for this motion, or how does having that additional $150, $150 dedicated over what was budgeted? And that's more just a question for the floor. Okay.
Just to dot our i's, cross our t's, we should do that at some point.
Okay, so James' recommendation would be to go ahead and approve it with the 55,150, and then if we have to augment our budget, then go ahead and augment our budget next year to reflect that. Is that correct?
Yes, but it doesn't, you don't have to wait till next year, you can augment next meeting if you want.
Okay.
Well, we really don't know, since he started July 1, we still have the July, August, and September, and a lot can happen in between that, and it could actually be significantly under.
Yeah, and if it comes under, then there's no need for that either.
Okay, but certainly it's not material, so. Okay, I'd like to hear from other board members. Ian, what do you think?
That's exactly what I would have done, is, just going across the board and reducing it accordingly. I think that's perfect, and geez, within $150, that's good, sounds good to me.
Kurt?
Yeah, I think it looks great. You guys did a great job. I'm sure we all wish that we had more to give out, but we just don't, and that's the best we can do. So I think it's fair across the board, and I like it.
All right, Marietta?
I think it's great. I agree with Kurt, with the funding that we have, this is the very best that we can do to help. The one thing we didn't mention is, under the McGill Drugstore mural, that they could apply for that under capital.
May I have one more comment? When I was looking at these things kind of before all of the excrement hit the fan, I was already thinking about some of the requests, and I had a hunch that a lot of it had to do with just requesting help with marketing and stuff. And I don't have a whole lot of capacity, but especially right now, if we come up against it where there's an event going on, or there's something that we're just coming up short on marketing in terms of they need something designed, I'll be glad to come down there and put my head together with Errol, and I'm sure we can probably, at no charge, just put some stuff together to help,
So it's probably a good time, right when I first got here, and this was before Ian and Kurt got on the board, I went ahead and pitched kind of what our marketing services that we would offer to people at no cost, based off of what their economic impact was, with the understanding that if you were, say, a tier 3 event, which would be brand new, or a smaller event that has no economic impact, you would get a certain amount of marketing. If you were a tier 2, which was a smaller event but you had potential to grow, all of our marketing would go ahead and work towards that. The nice thing about these grants and going through these grants, the only person that actually applied for marketing was the train for the Reindeer Express. Everybody else was for prizes or paying judges or doing something like that. The reason that the train's different is what they were proposing is not in the suite of marketing services that we offer, even for top tier events. And so that's things like geofencing and additional digital marketing that's just kind of outside of our realm. But I'll go ahead and send that out so that all the board members know, in case you're out talking to the community, and it's it'll clearly outline this is what we offer for free at no cost for your event. And then with the hopes that we can control the messaging and the quality, but that can also free up a huge amount of, money in their budget to go ahead and just put on a really good event. So thank you for bringing that up, Ian.
Ian, I